To SEAMEO INNOTECH, led by its Center Director, Dr. Mahalea V. Ravago. Our dear participants, of course, Her Excellency, Ambassador of Kingdom of Thailand to the Republic of the Philippines, Ma'am Makawadi Sumitmore. Nice to see you again po. Our participants today, fellow public servants, guests, ladies and gentlemen, and those who are watching us online, good afternoon po, magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On behalf of the Philippine government, allow me to express my deepest gratitude to SEAMEO INNOTECH for being our long-standing partner in advancing innovative, research-based, and technology-oriented solutions to address educational challenges not only in our country, but throughout Southeast Asia. In fact, this seminar series is a shining example of your commitment to empowering the entire region to effectively respond to the current and emerging needs of our learners and educators through lifelong learning and inclusive development. And so I am honored to speak at the 7th INNOTECH Seminar series on education, innovation, and technology, following the powerhouse lineup of thought leaders who have previously discussed artificial intelligence, knowledge economies, functional literacy statistics, future-ready higher education, and STEM education, all important topics in our efforts to build a future-proof nation. I would like to focus on three key topics: how we are transforming education and digitalization through public financial management and budget strategies, the reforms we are implementing to transform public service delivery, and the importance of applying the whole of society approach to achieving our national development goals as outlined in Philippine Development Plan 2023 to 2028. As you may know, the plenary deliberations on the proposed 6.793 trillion national budget for fiscal year 2026 have already begun. For this year, the topmost priority is to nurture future-ready generation as clearly identified even in our budget theme. This follows the directive of our President, President Bongbong Marcos. He even mentioned this in the last State of the Nation address, where he said, puspusan, pang-ayusin at pagandahin ng administrasyon ang sistema ng edukasyon. This is why for fiscal year 2026, we have significantly increased the allocation for basic and higher education to 1.224 trillion pesos. And I am proud to share that through the efforts and determination of our hardworking team at the DBM, for the first time, the Philippines will meet the UNESCO's recommendation of allocating at least 4% of the country's gross domestic product for education. Of this amount, the Department of Education is allocated with 928.52 billion pesos to ensure the delivery of quality basic education across the country. This budget will also ensure that no Filipino learner will be hindered by undernutrition or hunger. Some 11.8 billion pesos is allocated for the expanded school feeding program. In line with our commitment to ensuring that no child will be left behind, our last mile schools will also receive 3 billion pesos to address the gaps in resources and facilities of schools in geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas or GIDAs, while alternative learning system for out-of-school youth and adults will have a budget of almost 700 million pesos. Furthermore, we recognize that our students will have more opportunities to excel in learning environment with robust physical and digital infrastructure. So we have proposed a budget of 28.1 billion pesos for basic education facilities to support the construction of new classrooms and repair rehabilitation of existing ones, water supply, sanitation facilities, and other critical improvements. Meanwhile, the DepEd computerization program will have a budget of 16.45 billion pesos, recording a significant increase of 576% from its budget this year to support the rollout of e-classroom and e-learning packages. We are equally committed to closing the gap in our education workforce and enhancing the welfare of our education. In line with this, we have allocated 15.39 billion pesos to create over 65,000 teaching and non-teaching positions to ease the burden of admin work on our teachers. Towards a more accessible and high-quality tertiary education, our state universities and colleges will receive some 134.99 billion pesos, while the Commission on Higher Education will be allocated with 34 billion to support its Achieve agenda. Of this amount, 27.41 billion will fund the universal access to quality tertiary education to cover the tuition and other school fees of our students. Meanwhile, some 2.15 billion pesos will also be allocated for the student financial assistance programs to ensure that deserving learners from poor to lower middle income households will not be left behind. And for the first time, we will introduce the Bagong Pilipinas Merit Scholars Program with an allocation of 630 million pesos. This will empower incoming college students from low-income households who graduated with the highest honors in senior high school to pursue their degrees, even up to master's degree. Ilan lang po ito sa mga budget na inilaan natin upang palakasin at pagandahin pa ang kalidad ng edukasyon sa ating bansa. Hangad namin na maaprubahan ang budget na ito upang mabigyan ng katuparan hindi lang ang mga plano na ito, kundi ang mga pangarap ng bawat kabataang Pilipino. To achieve this goal, we will pursue not only the passage of the national budget, but also its prudent management through our digitalization initiative. Since the beginning of this administration, we have harnessed technology to transform public service, making it more transparent, efficient, and effective. In fact, according to the latest United Nations e-government survey, the Philippines moved up 16 spots in terms of digital governance, from 89 to 73 worldwide in just 2 years. I am proud to share that we have progressed from the high to the very high e-government development index group, reflecting our success in strengthening digital infrastructure, expanding internet connectivity, and integrating digital tools into governance. At the DBM, we leverage technology in public financial management, or PFM, to make the utilization of government resources more efficient and effective, and more importantly, to open up the budget process to the people. Following the directive of PBBM to digitalize and harmonize our PFM processes, we launched the PFM Reforms Roadmap 2024 to 2028 in October last year, which outlines targeted interventions, activities, and outcomes across 11 strategic focus areas to modernize our PFM system. One of our key priority area is a digital PFM, which aims to achieve the full adoption of an integrated financial management information system across all agencies, ensuring seamless, efficient, and government transactions. I am also excited to announce that we are moving full speed ahead with a cloud-based deployment of the BTMS, starting with the core partner agencies with top spending allocations. This September, the Bureau of the Treasury and the DBM will go live with the system, followed by the Department of Finance, Department of Economy Planning and Development, Department of Education, Department of Health, Department of Social Welfare and Development in October. The initial rollout of the BTMS, focusing on the budget execution and utilization module, will establish a database of daily financial transactions across all national government agencies. This will enable real-time monitoring of obligations and disbursements, guiding decision makers to further improve resource allocations. To complement these efforts, we also launched the results of the 2024 Multi-Framework Public Expenditure and Financial Accountability PIFA assessments conducted with the support of the Asian Development Bank, among other development partners. Another milestone for the DBM is that for the first time, we have produced 5 reports, including the country's first ever child responsive PFM assessment. This report provided the baseline data on child-focused budgeting at a national level and recommended the integration of children's welfare across all stages of our PFM processes. Sa pamamagitan po nito, masisiguro natin na ang pera ng taong bayan ay nagagamit ng tama upang matugunan ang pangangailangan ng bawat mamamayan, lalo na ng ating mga kabataan. This was also our guiding principle when we advocated for procurement reforms, leading to the enactment of Republic Act No. 12009 or the new Government Procurement Act. This landmark law hailed as the biggest anti-corruption measure in recent history, harnesses the power of technology to streamline procurement processes, primarily through the Philippine Government Electronic Procurement System or PhilGEPS. This includes innovative features such as the e-marketplace, promoting greater transparency, accountability, operational efficiency, and value for money. It also introduces fit-for-purpose procurement modalities, which now include the direct procurement for science, technology, and innovation. This approach supports research and development, as well as the creation of pre-commercial goods, which are vital to advancing the country's innovation ecosystem. We are also leveraging technology to enhance fiscal transparency. I am proud to share that we are currently ranked number 1 in budget transparency, not just in Southeast Asia, but in the entire Asia, based on the latest Open Budget Survey. And we intend to maintain our standing through our digitalization efforts. Toward this end, our DBM website is home to all key budget documents, including the People's Budget or the simplified version of the National Expenditure Program and the General Appropriations Act, which our citizens can access to understand and scrutinize budget allocations across government programs and projects. And on top of that, our website features a budget analytics dashboard where citizens can monitor the status of our national budget, particularly the NEP budget dimensions and the local government support fund. I have also seen in the news that there are some senators and congressmen who are proposing to use blockchain for transparency. Sa DBM, matagal na po natin yata nasimulan ito. I am also pleased to highlight that the Philippines is now among the first countries in Asia to adopt public blockchain infrastructure for tracking government spending. This groundbreaking initiative enables the public to access immutable, real-time records of key budget documents such as the Special Allotment Release Orders or SAROs and the Notices of Cash Allocations or the NCAs. We take pride in pioneering this reform, and we welcome the support of both Senate and the House of Representatives as they work to institutionalize blockchain technology through a legislation. However, as we are all aware, the numbers on paper may not always align with the actual progress of our projects on the ground. That is why throughout last month, we have been intensifying our monitoring efforts to ensure that every peso translates to real and tangible outcomes. In line with this, we recently launched Project DIME, or the Digital Information for Monitoring and Evaluation, a platform that uses geotagging and satellite imaging to enable our citizens to track the progress of major infrastructure projects online. In fact, we have been working on this since we assumed in the DBM in 2022. Through Project Dime, you can now see the budget utilization, implementing agency, contractor, contract agreements, timelines, and current status of different projects at a glance. We have also integrated disaster resilience and climate risk analysis into the monitoring system by adding the flood control component made possible through our partnership with University of the Philippines, NOAA. Finally, we now also have the Budget ng Bayan Monitor or the Fiscal Year 2024 Enhanced Agency Performance Report, which assesses the financial and physical performance of all government agencies, as well as the timelines and quality of their reports so that we know if they're utilizing their budget well, kung ginagamit ba talaga nila ng tama ang mga pondong inalaan para sa mga proyektong hiningan nila ng pondo. Sa pamamagitan ng mga inisyatibong ito, nagsisilbing tulay ang teknolohiya upang gawing mas bukas ang proseso ng pagpaplano, pamamahala ng ating pondo na nakatuon sa mga prioridad ng ating gobyerno. And for the final part of our presentation, allow me to share the various strategies that the DBM implements to enable a whole-of-society approach towards achieving our agenda for prosperity. First, we are using the program convergence budgeting approach, an interagency effort to eliminate program duplication and align targets, beneficiaries, resources, and timelines across agencies as directed by the President. Second, as a founding member of the Open Government Partnership and now a member of its Global Steering Committee, we continue to champion open governance at every level. Our recent hosting of the 2025 OGP Asia Pacific Regional Meeting strengthened regional cooperation in advancing transparency, accountability, and citizen participation. Meanwhile, our OGPNAS nationwide advocacy campaign has been mobilizing local government leaders, students, civil society organizations to embrace open governance principles and engage in governance processes. And I'm delighted to share that earlier this month, we launched the regional implementation of OGPNAS through our DBM regional offices, celebrating local innovators, highlighting grassroots champions, and co-creating solutions that reflect the unique realities of our regions. Sa bukas na pamamahala, ang boses ng mga Pilipino ay napapakinggan. Kaya nakakasiguro tayo na mas epektibo at makabuluhan ang pagbuo ng ating mga programa sa edukasyon at digitalisasyon. Bawat budget, reforma at strategiya na aking pong ibanahagi ay isang layunin. Iisa lang po ang layunin. Ang tiyakin na may magandang kinabukasan ang ating mga kabataan dahil bawat bukas ay mahalaga. Kaya inaanyayahan po namin kayo na makiisa sa pagsulong ng aming mga inisyatiba at advokasya tungo sa mas maunlad at makabuluhang bukas para sa lahat. Through education, digitalization, and collaboration, let us achieve the full potential of our nation and our vision of a bagong Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Romy and Robbie. So, good afternoon. It's a pleasure. Actually, we're glad that ASEC is here to respond to the questions. Very interesting information, if you've heard. We did not realize, actually, when we see our leaders talking about the innovations, we did not realize that they are already there. But very few people know about it, and we're glad that we have managed to invite DBM, officials from DBM to talk about it. The usual route, we will request if you have questions in this room, you can actually use the microphones there. Please do wait to be acknowledged, and if you will be acknowledged, please inform us about your name and affiliation. We also have connections, as mentioned by Attorney Chris earlier. We're also connected by a Zoom. Please, if you do have questions, please raise it there. Our team will be giving the questions later on, as well as our YouTube and Facebook account. There are existing features there where you can ask questions. So to start, are there questions from the audience? Ma'am, please. You can use the microphone from this side.
Good afternoon, sir. So I'm Jennifer Guasis from Victoria School Foundation, a private school foundation for 60 years existing. So my question is, what are the opportunities available for private school foundation to access government support or funding for education technology initiatives? And secondly, sususugan ko lang does the DBM have existing programs where private school foundations can partner with public institutions to expand EdTech access? So I am the head of special projects. Formerly, I'm the school principal. And formerly, I've been working with Malacanang for 17 years before I came in to the school education setting. So thank you for
Thank
the
you, ma'am.
answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Well, first, I would say on the higher education, yung sa DOST po, we're providing many research activities being promoted across the country, not only for public schools, but the private universities could also access these funds. So, but this is really more on the research development. And also provision for yung mga, for example, yung mga kailangan yung labor force in conducting those researches. So meron po tayong ganon. Medyo mahina lang pagdating po sa secondary level. Kasi ang talagang ang focus ngayon is more on the public schools, and then how we are really left behind when it comes to alam niyo naman po yung PISA, 'di ba, yung scoring. And medyo talagang meron po tayong crisis which is called the learning poverty. Parang 90% as reported by World Bank. And we really have to address that because it's so different when it's the private school children who would be taking the exam. I think on the average, they would be getting much higher scores in math and in reading. But clearly, kung yung PEG ang sa sinabing average across OECD is at 69 to 70% for math, nasa 30 lang po tayo. Nasa 30, 32. So talagang malayo. And that's why we are really boosting our intervention for public school yung systems. And that's why also yung DepEd talagang nagdo-double time sila just to make sure that we would be able to score better in the succeeding PISA survey. Kasi this was just recently na nagkaroon ng ganitong metric. I think before, you see, education has been the top priority of our budget by constitution. But the problem there is really the impact that it really makes on the learning capacity of every student. It seems that we have not really gone so far in terms of yung capabilities of our students to really do well as expected given their age level. So that's why we are investing so much on the public school systems, especially on the secondary. And then right now, we are also putting more on the nutrition because we see, for example, si Secretary, she did not mention about this thing of the nursery or the CDC, Center for Development Care, Child Care. This is like the nursery for incoming grade 1 students, because what a report of the EDCOM says that the problem with the public school students that they are already at it's not a level playing field, because when they get into the first grade, they don't have any kind of preparation, unlike those who are in private school. So some households would be able to access this thing of the nursery. So preparation, so that they would be able to, I don't know, even the social aspect of it, could really motivate the child to increase their learning capacity. And this is something that is not present to poor families. And that's why even at that level, we are introducing yung mga daycare, or sorry, yung mga nursery schools for across the country. I think we will be building 333 child care centers across the country just to make sure that these students would be prepared when they enter the elementary schools.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, but I think I have not really answered fully your because you're asking about the private sector right now, private support. But we also understand that given for example, sa higher education, we have really put this thing of the UACTE bill, yung free education, and we are seeing that the private universities are hurting because of parang they even say it's anti-competitive policy by the government because imagine we put so much money there already, and then the private school, they have to pay their teachers, and then they have to get enrollments, so increase their students year after year. So that one we understand the problem also because of that kind of lack of competition now being experienced by the private schools, and yet to think that they are the ones who really provide good education to our students. So ito we're also in discussion with the EDCOM too on how to address that, because that's true, too much intervention coming from the government on the tertiary level would also put down the competitive powers of the private universities.
I remember in relation to that, there was a chance, I had a chance actually to talk with a group. I was invited to one of the sessions with a group of private schools. That was actually a common concern. They think that the government is somewhat competing in the sense that they rather go to public schools rather than private schools. And in some cases, they felt that they've been, aside from the fact that they're competing, they're also being required to provide so much reports because they have to, as an institution, you have to make sure that you're giving quality education and other things. So we're thankful that you're talking with EDCOM to make sure that something will be done finally. So I think that's a common concern. What happens next? I believe there's a question from that side, ma'am. Please kindly introduce yourself and your affiliation.
Good afternoon po. I'm Professor Lilibet Cruz from New Era University. While listening to our honorable speaker, these are the questions that pop up into my mind, okay? What monitoring mechanisms and tools are currently in place to track the implementation of digitalization programs across municipalities, particularly in light of persistent classroom shortages affecting students nationwide? And one more question po, is there an allocated budget for students with special needs? If so, what programs are in place to support them? Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much, ma'am, for your questions. On the first one, I think it's important to also note that we have invested so much also right now on school buildings and computerizations across the countries on all the public schools, and then including SUCs are investing on this one. So we have provision for upgrade of their systems, no? Ang problema kasi ngayon sa amin, as in the whole of government, no, not only in the education sector, is that every agency would really push for digitalization. That's a common thing, no? Ang problema, hindi sila interoperable. So they are working in silos, no? And this is the same with in the universities, even yung mga payroll system, no? So may mga backlog at saka may mga bottlenecks na nangyayari. So what we are actually doing now, which is part of what Secretary Amenah is doing, the BTMS, which is actually like a centralized system that will make sure that all digitalization efforts being done across the bureaucracy will be integrated. So no more of this thing of siloed activities on digitalization, because in principle this should be only one for the entire bureaucracy. So this is the vision that our secretary is having right now, and this goes through all the sectors, not only in the revenue collections, yung sa BIR and BUC, ganun din po sa ibang mga sector like in water sector and also in the education. So digitalization will really put a very big premium in the development of our agenda for prosperity. Tapos yung isa naman po about yung mga alternative learning, meron pong ginagawa po dyan ang DepEd. Sa even those who are of course those who have special needs, I think these are already in place, and we have increased the budget for that one by I think at least 20%. And then second is yung mga out of school youth, kasi some people, out of school youth or those students who may not have time to go to school for some valid reasons, like they have to work also. So that is already parang in the mind of the DepEd, and so they are putting some system like alternative classroom learning, wherein they would just need to have that kind of diploma, which is very crucial for getting into the job market. So I think the end point is that this fellow, he may not be really the topper in his class, but just to make sure that he will land somewhere for a job. I think that is something very much also in mind, kasi ang kailangan yung sa amin din in the Development Budget Coordination Council, according to our economic managers, we have to really reduce the poverty rate to single digit by 2028. And one very important factor here is job employment. And that job employment is very much connected to education. So we have to make that kind of continuity, that those people whom we would want to go to school would end up getting a job sooner or later.
Thank you, Asek. Ma'am? I will send to...
Thank you, Asek. May follow-up question lang ako. Sino ba dito yung mga taga-government? DepEd. Okay, with regards to the digitalization, kasi my experience with working with the government and now here at INNOTECH, I think it's a challenge for the people in government. We want to digitalize the system, pero we have the support of the DBM, but I think ang naiiwan is the dapat sabay from COA and also from the procurement. Because people in the government, okay, we want to invest in digitalization. It's a big investment. And then you already digitize, let's say yung even just the attendance every day. And then you already have the digitalized attendance, the biometrics. And then come COA, they need the printed copy of the attendance. So meaning to say, you'd go one step forward and then two steps backward because you still need to print even though you already invest. So that's one. And then in the government sector also, okay, you want to invest and it's a big investment, okay, but it's not like infra, like one-time investment. If you digitize, you need to do cloud, it becomes an MOOE. And this is a continuing expense that is a large expense. And you're already captured because it's not easy to change service provider for the cloud because you have to transfer all your files. So, meaning to say, there is that assurance on the procurement challenge, the COA challenge, and of course, the continuing budget.
Thank you, Dr. Ravago, for the question.
There's a question, Philip? Sorry. Yeah, after. Sorry.
Okay, so you see, digitalization is really a whole of government approach. It cannot just be agencies here and then COA next year or much later, because it should be like the fingers in your hand. They should be growing in the same proportion. Some may be growing faster because it's a thumb or it's a finger ano yan, hintuturo, or the thumb should be expected at a slower pace, but they should be growing in at the same time and the same proportion. So the same thing with the government agencies. That's why it is important that it has to be integrated across the bureaucracy. It cannot just be given to those who are asking for it. Like what's happening in the yearly budget system, because some agencies would be thinking more about their mandate, which is provision of the ayudas, no? But did not realize that, oh, I have to also digitalize the system of giving the money to my beneficiaries, but they are still stuck in that old format of handing money face to face, no? So, and you see that there are some agencies who may not have that kind of maturity yet, and that's why it's important that the oversight should be giving that cue. We have to step up and somehow moving at the same pace. Maybe some faster, others slower, but we will have to be moving forward. No, it cannot be that some agencies would be left behind. And this is the very idea of the BTMS. In fact, we are doing at the DBM. You see, atin-atin lang to the DICT is medyo mabagal sila mag-disburse. Even then we give them money, medyo mabagal yung utilization of funds, no? And that's why we take it on our as a challenge on our part, the DBM, to be the lead when it comes to the PFM systems. PFM system is Public Financial Management System, which is really anchored on digitalization. So we are making sure that all agencies would be chipping in or contributing to whatever inputs that they may be providing to the sector, and it has to be integrated. Otherwise, there might be again another problem of redundancy. That's something that coming from the DBM, that's something that we don't want to have, because we don't want waste. No, we don't mind if spending more. In fact, right now we are spending so much on cybersecurity. You see, cybersecurity, siguro I'm really left behind, but for the current generation, this is really a real threat, especially if you're investing on digitalization. But I was really shocked with the amount of money being put on cybersecurity. But you have to give it to them, because we are moving towards that direction already. So it cannot just be building the infrastructure. You have to also make sure that this is robust. The systems are robust and free from any kind of attacks coming from the outside. So these things are really included in the budget. Siyempre, if you're not aspiring for digitalization, cybersecurity would be even far from your radar, no? But I think it's a natural consequence of that kind of awareness that we are having right now on the need for digitalization, and that's why many agencies are also investing on cybersecurity.
Because it's similar to, you mentioned about silos earlier. So you cannot just say, okay, this is yours, and then another person will say, okay, we need that too. And then everyone end up getting the same project and repeat performance, so to speak.
I can just tell you one very a good example, no, that we are really a culprit of this thing of lack of interoperability in our system. You see, NEDA or DepDev and DBM. For the longest time, we have our own systems. DepDev is the one checking on all proposals, infrastructure proposals. So they would receive thousands of proposals, no, including the coming from the local governments. And then DBM also would be receiving budget proposals. DepDev receives proposals for something like something that would impact on the economy. So they would check on the economic viability of these projects, whereas DBM would be seeing on proposals coming from the departments. But our systems are not talking with each other. So we would end up still doing the manual thing just to reconcile which is which. That's why I was coming earlier in a meeting with DepDev, and Secretary R.C. Balisacan was there. And he was saying, this is really very urgent. No, we cannot afford to just go on status quo like what our people in the government have been accustomed to doing. No, we have to step up on our making sure that our systems are harmonized. Otherwise, you have these kinds of ghost projects lurking around, no, in the system because of the inability to track them, no, to pin down those irregularities.
Thank you. We're actually trying to prevent people to talk about ghost projects, but ASEC opened it. Uh, yeah, I'm quite amused actually when several weeks ago, Secretary Amenah was asked by a reporter, how come that we are not yet doing the Incheon declaration that you need to have 4% of your GDP allocated for education? And then we found out now that finally we're doing 4%. So perhaps the question is, how did you able to do it finally?
Madali lang yan. Okay. So for the past let's say 3 or 4 years, what the economic managers were actually targeting is 5 to 6% spending of on infrastructure. Infra to GDP spending, which is 5 to 6%. And I think this is the formula for becoming a developed country. Some developed countries even experience higher than that, like 7 to or 8%. So we are really trying to do that because before 2015, our infra spending was just 2 to 3%. So it was just in the recent year that we had that kind of awakening that, hey, let's go long term. Let's really push for economic development through infrastructure. And I can tell you, for the past 3 years, we have managed to achieve that goal. We've been getting 5.8% of our GDP being placed on infra development. Now, what we are seeing recently is that private sector is joining us. Apart from the fact that we have put also in place the PPP law, which allows for greater partnership with the private sector. So the infrastructure program is not solely being shouldered now by the government. We are seeing now the participation coming from the private sector through the PPP, through the PPP mode of financing. And because of that, for next year, from 5.8% of infra spending, we toned it down to 5.2% or 5.1% because we can already afford it since the private sector contribution is already coming. So the public construction is now we can afford to lower the public construction. So this amount that we save from construction, public construction, is the one that we use for another long-term development tool, which is human capital. So we're seeing of transferring this money from infra to human capital development. And that human capital development is mainly on education. And that's how we got the 4%.
Finally. Thank you. I believe, are there questions before we ask, are there questions online? Perhaps just one question online and then we'll request ma'am to ask the question as well. Okay.
We have a question here from Jean Nunez. How is blockchain infrastructure similar to or different from traditional IT infrastructure?
I think using this system, we would be able to make sure, no, that our activities are really well monitored. And so that aspect of connivance or collusion would be lessened.
It's something similar to just in case someone alters the information, you will readily know who did it. So, ma'am, thank you, Asek. I'm sorry, this would be the last question. So we're having something. Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Annie Gallardo from the Pamantasan ng Lungsod ng Maynila College of Science. Sir, I think every one of us in this forum are appreciative of the budget allocations discussed by Madam Secretary a while ago with regards to innovation. However, my concern is about the local government university funding. We have some pressing needs on like lack of innovation such as this, and still we have some problems on or concerns on essential laboratory materials, updating our library holdings, or even hiring of new teachers, and of course the promotion of the seasoned teachers. Now, may I ask if the budget that has been discussed by our good secretary will cover even the LGUs, because of course everyone knows that we are at the mercy of the funds of the local government. So when we raise problems like this, the answer would always be the lack of budget. So I wonder if the budget allocation for 2026 would also cover LGUs, local government universities. I think my concern is the same with my fellow participant here, but she is on the private school. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Meron po sa mga, of course, SUCs and also colleges and universities would be given also these kinds of funding. In fact, ang nangyari po, yesterday we were coming from the budget hearing, plenary. Meron pang ang space na napunta for education, particularly on infrastructure, or yung school buildings, and also yung mga academic buildings. You have even laboratories may na-provide din para po doon na nanggaling coming from the flood control. So, and this is not a small amount of money. This is 255 billion. So 255 billion, since we are really we are bent already on not pursuing at the moment flood control projects. So we would rather put it in some other sectors that are also related to infra activities. So yung mga sa education sector, kasama po doon yung mga school buildings, dormitories, and also yung mga academic buildings and laboratories.
Thank you, ASEC. So that's an assurance, so to speak, that local government fund universities. Okay, so thank you, everyone. Thank you, ASEC. Any last message or something
Yeah.
to the community?
Yung sa amin lang kasi, we are seeing yung demographic dividend. We might be reaching it sometime in 2030, 2035. And that's why we are now changing gear. Well, changing gear, but really still there. We are not abandoning our infra goals, infra targets, but we are seeing another equally important investment, which is really on human capital. And we want to invest now because otherwise we might not be able to grasp that demographic dividend that the Secretary of DepDem is actually saying. No? And if we are able to produce competent, learned, and healthy labor force by that time, we will be assuring ourselves that we will be able to get a high growth, especially for our country that is really high on the service sector. No? So we would rather want to spend more now, so that we would be able to reap the fruits of these investments in the coming years.
Thank you, ASEC. Thank you to DBM Secretary for giving us a preview, so to speak, of what will happen next year, especially now that we're being bugged by concerns on flood and everything else. And we're very thankful with what happened. Because of that situation, we're now finally looking at human capital investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Robbie. And of course, Dr. Robbie or ASEC Robbie